Well, the Albanese government gets things done. And nowhere is it more important to get things done than in the area of climate policy after 10 years of denial and delay. Today, we're a big step closer to passing the safeguards mechanism reforms through the Parliament. We're also, therefore, a big step closer to achieving our targets of net zero and 43% by 2030. The alternative would have been to walk away from 43% as a country and limit our ambitions to 35%, which was never an acceptable outcome for the Albanese government. Now, we always said we'd be happy to engage with the crossbench on suggestions and amendments which were, one, in keeping with our election mandate, and two, in keeping with our policy agenda. And the things that I'm announcing today meet both of those tests. And it's very clear from Mr Band's press conference that there are things that he asked for that we haven't agreed to because they weren't in keeping with those two tests. And he'll continue to campaign and talk about those things. But we'll be getting on with the job of implementing this package. They're also informed, these changes, by 8 months of consultation, 3 rounds of consultations and discussion with the broader crossbench, which, as the Prime Minister indicated, will be ongoing. Really, they do two things. They strengthen accountability, transparency and integrity of the scheme, and secondly, provide extra support for those strategic manufacturing industries that are so important for our economy and so important for our transition as well. I'll just, in the interest of time, as the Prime Minister said, I have to go into the House to make sure it passes the House in a few minutes. I'll just run you through the top lines very briefly. Of course, the government had previously announced $600 million of support for safeguards facilities. We're also announcing an extra $400 million for those key strategic industries for the transition to ensure their ongoing presence in Australia as a sovereign capability: steel, aluminium and cement. In addition, for manufacturing, as well as the 3% revenue test for a reduced baseline, we're introducing a new test based on the cost of abatement as a percentage of profit, or its EBIT, which will support manufacturing. Also, we're making clear our intention in the Act that aggregate covered emissions must reduce over time, expressed as a 5-year rolling average to take into account any short-term fluctuations. If the cap, in terms of pollution, if the advice to me is that it would be exceeded, then I must consult on my policy options and, as the Minister of the Day, either amend the rules or take any other policy action available to the government at that time. In addition, we've already announced our plans to reform the EPBC so that new projects would have their emissions reported publicly. Where any such proposal comes forward, that would be fed into the safeguard mechanism as well. In addition, in relation to ACCUs, we will require the publication, this is about transparency, the publication of all covered emissions for facilities, baselines, use of safeguard credits, which will be created under the bill, and methodologies used by ACCUs, and also any facility which uses more than 30% of ACCUs for their abatement will have to provide a report as to why they're not doing more on-site abatement. That's about transparency and accountability. We'll amend Section 33 of the Research and Development Act to remove it as an opportunity to subsidise coal and gas extraction. In keeping with the previous government's policy, we will require Scope 1 emissions for the Beetaloo to be offset in terms of the Pepper inquiry, and new gas fields which fill in existing facilities will be required to be zero reservoir carbon as part of their development. That's a condition which is international best practice and has been Australian best practice for many years. I want to thank the Prime Minister for his leadership and support in this process. I want to thank my ministerial colleagues, particularly the Treasurer, the Industry Minister Ed Husic and Minister Madeleine King, and thank Mr Bant and the Greens for their strong engagement. The Albanese government, a government of grown-ups which gets things done.